So, last 2022 in August, the wrestling world was finally able to see CM Punk return after a 7-year hiatus. Mr. Isaac, did you actually? I didn't see this coming, did you?
I always thought in the back of my mind it was possible, but it was like I have to see it to believe it kind of thing.
Yeah. Nick, what about you? Did you see this coming?
No, I'm a massive mark for CM Punk. I thoroughly enjoyed both Summer of Punks, and I was looking forward to this Summer of Punk before it happens. But no, didn't see it coming at all.
Of course. And Henry, what about you? Did you see this coming?
See what the whole scenario was CM Punk coming?
Mm-hmm.
The one that I was shouting about for like as soon as it was AEW was announced. No, I didn't see it coming.
Of course. But yeah, we're going to be talking about obviously CM Punk's time in AEW. Obviously, there's a lot to discuss and absolutely everything. But first, intern, roll the intro. This is, of course, September 30th, episode 108, CM Punk from Hired to Fired. I am, of course, the magician, Liam Wakeland.
And I am the effing expert, the American, the only American on the show today, the effing expert, Mr. Isaacs.
Of course. And we had to get two people. We had to get a salty son of a bitch. So we've got a salty son of a bitch. Haney, come on, introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, you did it for me. You know, I'm a salty son of a bitch from Scotland.
And of course, I'm joined by my good friend from Work the Left Side. He's got an amazing podcast out. Nick, how are we doing, my friend?
Oh, good, dude. Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Not at all. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. Mr. Isaacs, how's the week been?
Bro, it has been very, very busy, very stressful. Had a lot of shit to do this week, and I'm glad it's done. I'm glad the week is rounded up, and I'm going to watch some football today, American football for you gentlemen, and watch Collision tonight. And I'm going to hang out here today for the next hour or so with my pals from across the pond and talk a little Pepsi Phil.
Of course. And Haney, how's your week been?
Pretty much just work, busy. Nothing exciting.
Fair enough.
But yeah, pretty much that's it. Yeah.
We got Joe Graham in the house.
Sorry?
Sorry, everybody jumped the gun there. We all just kind of interrupted. Nick, how's the week been?
Yeah, man, it's been gravy. Just a few episodes done, just working, being a dad, playing a Nintendo. It's all good.
There you go. I love that bit that you said Nintendo, so I'm kind of happy with that. But
hell yeah.
Enough rambling on. We've got something to do, obviously, first before we get into our main event. Mr. Isaacs, what is that?
It's a little thing that we like to do here every week where we kind of discuss the news of the week. It is called the Magic Weekly.
Now, of course, the Magic Weekly is brought to you by FTW Wrestling. You want to learn how to be a wrestler? I mean, Mr. Isaacs, we can learn from the best, right? Two people who win as basically part of the show, really.
Two very good friends of the channel, Natalia Markova and Brian Idol, both of which you have seen on NWA if you've watched that. And this is a very good place for you to go. $250 US dollars a month. You can train to be a professional wrestler. I think that's a steal. And have we got like a video clip we're running for this?
Of course. So to give you a little idea about this, here it is.
Determination, perseverance. These are the qualities that make a champion. Do you have what it takes to be the next wrestling superstar? Are you ready to turn your dreams into a reality? At Fight the World Wrestling's World Wrestling Academy, we can help you become the champion you were meant to be. Our world travel trainers, Brian Idol and Natalia Markova, are well-known industry professionals with years of experience in the world of wrestling. From the basics to advanced techniques, they are dedicated to help give you the tools that you need to succeed in the ring. Our training program is tailored to challenge you, push you to your limits, and help you discover your full potential. Come join our diverse group of talent. Join us at Fight the World Wrestling's World Wrestling Academy and make your dream a reality. Visit our website or contact us to learn more and start your journey to the top today.
Boom, go check that out. So, what's been going off in the news this week? Sami Callihan, obviously, is now apparently a free agent. He posted on his Twitter, I've got it here a second. For the first time in almost 3 years, I'll be taking select indie bookings for matches, seminars, signings, appearances, etc. DMs are open. Nick, I'll start with you. Obviously, with Sami Callihan, obviously an Impact, I kind of feel sorry for him because he's kind of been like left in the dark a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he tried the NXT thing. I was always impressed with him there. Didn't quite measure up to WWE. Turned back up at Impact. Had an awesome run. Loved the stuff he was doing in Impact. But yeah, recently just kind of been left in catering by the looks of it.
It is. Mr. Isaac, what about you?
Yeah, I haven't kept up with Impact much the past couple of years, but when I was watching it a couple of years back, he was like a big deal. He was like one of the main event players there, and he, no pun intended, he really made an impact on the company there and was very entertaining. I kind of wonder if he's going to go to AEW at this point. I don't think WWE's back in the cards for him. I really don't. I could see maybe him going to AEW and maybe working a deathmatch feud with his old pal Moxley.
Maybe so. Maybe so. Haney, what do you think?
Yeah, either that, they could take up baseball.
Well, he's good at hitting home runs with people's eyes. That's for sure.
But, yeah, if he was going to do anything, I think it would probably be maybe want a bit of that. That was a GCW and things like that. Maybe turn up in AEW. What was it? Put. It's interesting because he had. Did he not have that the nickname Switchblade at one point? So him coming up at AEW. There's a potential feud there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one because it's like I like to see him in AEW. I mean, everybody's all been saying I want to see him obviously back with Moxley. I think that'd be an interesting feud. It could work, but we don't know. I mean, Nick, is it AEW? Is that the answer for him, really?
GCW for me. GCW. Just him versus Nick Gage. I think we'll sell tickets. If they can get him versus Cardona, that's 2 matches, I'll see.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
That would
So
be a
we'll
big
obviously
match, especially if they offer free hepatitis vaccinations.
make sure I'm not drinking when you say that. Jesus. So we'll obviously head back to AEW, and there was a nice little masked man. I'll show you the image, which has got a lot of people talking. Who could it be? Mr. Isaacs, what do we think, and who do we think it is?
I'm not really sure who it is. I think it's got to be somebody big. Like, I don't think it could be just somebody from New Japan or something like that. Although I don't know. I mean, with this crowd, that's a possibility. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I don't think they're going to be revealed tomorrow night. But I do think it's going to be Adam Copeland. I think it's going to be Edge.
Interesting. Nick, what about you?
Yeah, it's a good shout. I think obviously Copeland's contract expired today, if information is correct, so he's free to turn up tomorrow, providing there's a no compete clause. But yeah, I'll say Copeland because they've been teasing it all over the shop, and if it is, I just hope it comes out as Sexton Hardcastle.
Interesting. Henry?
No, I don't think it's him. I don't think they would go there with him. What was it called? I know everybody was trying to guess. We were looking at the screenshots and things like that. I think you're sort of right. The people in the sort of the people in the sort of outfits, I don't think are the actual people that are going to be involved in it. But who knows? I think long term it could be Adam Cole. And eventually it's sort of revealed to be him. But it could be Samoa Joe's TNA Ninja coming back. I wanted to. bring back that gimmick.
Or
Could
what,
be, could
what
be.
about Wardlow? Because that's MJF's old mask, isn't it? What about Wardlow?
Yeah,
Hmm.
I think Wardlow was one of the big guys on the left side of it. What was it? But I'm guessing. I guess I'm gonna see. I heard a rumor that what was it? The Derby match and the Christian match is the main event tomorrow night. So, what was it? If anything, that would be where Adam would sort of turn up. But then again, they could turn the story around into that eventually, you know. But who knows?
We shall definitely see. I mean, we'll stick obviously with AEW and obviously Wrestle Dreams tomorrow. I'll go around obviously the table. Mr. Isaacs, are we excited for the show?
Yeah, I was a little underwhelmed by it this time last week. But this week and with the appearance of the masked guys and everything, it's kind of made me a little more intrigued about it. So I'm interested to see what happens.
Of course. Nick, what about you?
Yeah, anybody who knows me knows I'm a massive mark for AEW. I always look forward to the pay-per-views. So I always think they deliver in ring, if nothing else.
Yep. Mr. Haney?
Yeah, it's a wee bit underwhelming for me. Obviously, you've got what was it, Bryle Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr. But what was it? I mean, everybody. I mean, you know, when you call me salty at the start. I mean, everybody's getting all what was it, hot and bothered about the thing that happened in Dynamite. You know, that was the last 5 seconds of the show, which suddenly makes the whole show amazing. You know, I'm a cynic, but what was it? No, definitely. It'll be great for that one match alone. I mean, you would pay just for that one match, I think. You know, so what was it? Yeah, who knows? I think there might be a big surprise with the women's in the women's match as well tomorrow night from the rumours I've heard. So could be interesting.
Interesting. So we'll head obviously to WWE. And Eli Dragunov says the only reason that I'm good right now and making a name for myself is because of Gunther. Annie, what do you reckon to these comments?
Oh, what was it? They've already had sort of some of the best matches ever. You know, what was it? The one during the pandemic. The best thing about that was there was no crowd as well. You know, and it was just pure wrestling. That's what I wish wrestling was. But obviously you can't do that every week. But yeah, the two of them for the longest time, it was ripped up all the promotions in the Indies in Europe. You know, it was like a well kept secret for some people. You probably agree.
Yeah. So Nick, obviously we know what Dragunov's obviously like, and we've seen him in progress. But I mean, these two are really, really good. Obviously, for what we've seen, would you agree with these comments?
Yeah, Mr. Salty got it spot on. You know, these two guys have tore it up. In WWE, they've tore it up across Europe. Guaranteed anything less than a 5-star match, and you know, out of these two, I'm disappointed.
Would you have him take the title? I mean, I know he's in NXT, but would you have him take the IC title? Would you bring him up and then just smash it?
Yeah, because I want to see. So I refuse to call him Gunther. I want to see Walter in the main event pick, and I want to see Walter in the main event scene. So yeah, have him take the IC, move Walter up.
You might be the guy to dethrone Roman. I think that's what I think. Anyway, I think that's what they're building. Fingers crossed. Yes.
Possibly. Mr. Isaacs, your thoughts on all this?
You know, Dragunov was not on my radar at all as an American fan until the Gunther matches. I mean, until those matches happened, and then I was like, "Whoa, this is wrestling. Like this is what high level professional wrestling is." And that's what I want to see more of. So he's been on my radar ever since those matches. And I would like to see him come up and work with Gunther again on the main roster. I think it would be fire. I'd love to see it.
Absolutely. So we've got one more story, obviously, to end the Magic Weekly. And it's, of course, LA Knight and John Cena will be teaming up at Fastlane. Annie, what do we reckon?
Not fussed.
Fair enough. Nick, what about you?
Yeah, not so much for the Cena thing, but LA Knight, man. Whether he's Eli Drake, in Impact or in NWA or LA Knight. Guy's awesome. I'm amazed it's taken this long for him to reach the heights that he's at now. The dude's just a perfect combination of Austin and The Rock. He's just, I love the guy.
Oh, sorry, you finished. Sorry, I apologise.
No, go.
I was just going to say on that, and you know fine well, and I mean, was it the one thing that I hate is, and Gunther's an example as well, and Elioff, and was it Tommy Ends, when obviously Aleister Black and then Malachi, but was it called? We all knew about these guys, and was it, and they didn't, but was it? They were doing the same work all the way through, It's just because they get that big platform, all of a sudden everybody's thinks they're the shits.
Dummies.
Sorry,
Mr. Isaac, your thoughts?
I love what they're doing with LA Knight. He's over. The crowd loves him. It's the story of LA Knight is kind of a case study in how wrestlers were built 20 years ago versus how they're built today. So wrestlers 20 years ago, they had the aesthetic of being the bigger guy. They were really good on the microphone, and they were allowed to actually act like badasses.
Yeah.
Like they didn't come out and have to do little childish things and kowtow to comedy shtick and all that. They were allowed to just come out and be like, I'm a bad MFer and I'm going to put you down because I'm better than you and I'm tougher than you. And he's a throwback to that.
Yeah.
Back to that era. And I think that's what makes him so special today.
Sorry to interrupt again. Just on that, there's an interview with Bret Hart, and he was talking about when he was, what was it? He was doing the stuff with Diesel. They actually put Diesel on top of crates to make him look even bigger than he was.
Yeah.
And what was it? What's really been spoiled for me in the last month or two in NXT is they're doing this program with Braun and Corbin, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Corbin just makes Braun look so small. This comes into me talking about what they do with the production and how they angle stuff and show stuff. But was, I mean, it just looks ridiculous. You've killed off that sort of monster look before he's even up. Well, that's just how I look at it. Be smart with how you present your guys. If you're going to put him next to a bigger guy, don't highlight the shot with a sort of wide shot and elevate the fact that he's about a foot taller.
Oh yeah. You gotta use the production tricks, the little Hollywood trickery to make somebody look either on par or make them look bigger or stronger than they actually are. It kind of reminds me of when Braun Strowman first came out and they built him up as a monster. Do you remember they always had the camera kind of down low, so it's like shooting him up on the screen to where he looks like a giant?
Yeah.
Like that's what you got to do. You got to use little camera trickery like that to get your guys over.
Definitely.
The other thing I actually remember is when the obviously backstage announcers, they kind of got right petite ones, so they look like small against the big guys. That's another little one I obviously know.
Yeah. Another little aesthetic trick. Yeah,
it's a bit of history, but it's nothing to do with wrestling. But see, when at the end of the Second World War, when the Japanese were signing, you probably know this, Mr. Isaac, because you're what was it? The Germans, the Americans intentionally went out and found the tallest soldiers that they had to humiliate the Japanese. Obviously, and it was a pure psychological thing. So it happens in your life.
Yeah, I mean it's subconscious psychology, like little subtle things that you don't pick up on if you just look directly at it, but it seeps into the back of your brain.
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely. So that wraps up obviously the Magic Weekly. So we've got absolutely everything out of the way, so let's get into our main event.
The main event.
Now, for weeks, we've been trying to establish, is this a quarter, is this a coin, or is this something else? Nick, what do you think?
Token.
What, that on the screen?
The video, what would you play then?
I looked away, dude. I do apologise. I was having a quick cheeky vape before I came back.
Basically, the debate that Liam and I have been having is trying to figure out whether the coin that's put into the slot of the arcade machine is like a U.S. quarter, or if it's like a token that you get proprietary from the arcade itself.
Well, I think you would be best educated to say yes or no on that one, because I have no idea what an American quarter looks like.
I think we've come to the conclusion we think it's a token, right, Liam?
Yes, we have. Hey, anyways, your picture gone.
My internet's went a wee bit wonky, so I'll bring it back as soon as it goes up again.
Okay, that's fine. So, before we obviously get one little more thing to do, is we've got to say thank you to another little sponsor, which is, of course, the Kill City Cup. This is I don't even know how to describe this, Mr. Isaac. Can you help me out?
Yeah, it's kind of like if you took Lucha Underground and mixed it with like a little WWE, and then you mixed it with like Mortal Kombat and some science fiction stuff. Just throw that all in a blender. You get Kill City Cup.
And to show you exactly what we're on about, here's another little video.
Welcome to the Kill City Cup.
I got the world by the balls.
You know, as I'm watching that, I could just see Nick's picture at the face just going, what the hell am I watching?
It looks like a night out in Leeds. I'm not going to lie. It just looks like a standard night out in Leeds.
Of course, that's obviously in the description of this video. You can go check it out. You can check it out on Kill City Cup or just Kill City Cup on YouTube. They're absolutely everywhere. There's some really big names in it as well. Brian Cage, Matt Seidel, Natalia Markova, and April Hunter, who will be on the Wrestling with the Paranormal on Monday. So go check it out. Right. Have we got everything? I've not forgotten anything, ever.
I think you got it all, my man. I think we're good to proceed with the discussion of Pepsi Phil here.
Of course. So today what we're doing is we're going to be looking at CM Punk's entire time. CM Punk's entire time, obviously, in AEW. So I've got a nice little timeline video I put together. And yeah, we're just going to discuss what we think and give us thoughts. So we have to start, obviously, at the beginning. August 20th, 2021. This is when Punk obviously made his debut. Mr. Isaacs, obviously, we spoke about it in the intro a little bit, but this actual moment was absolutely huge. I remember the crowd. What do you remember about this?
This was an amazing thing to see on television. I mean, it is the biggest pop and biggest genuine fan reaction in the history of AEW by far. This was a huge return. It's one of those returns that everybody kind of thought it was going to happen as the week led up. It's like we kind of think this is going to happen, but we're not going to believe it till it actually happens. And when Cult of Personality hit, it was perfect because you knew then that Tony Khan ponied up the money to get the familiar music, and it was just huge, man. It was an absolute huge reaction that, like I said, it's going to be very hard for AEW to ever replicate that.
Of course. Nick, obviously, what do you remember about his debut?
Mate, yeah, I must have watched that at least 10 times within the space of 24 hours. I was sending it to people who don't even watch wrestling and just being like, look what you're missing out on. This was fucking amazing. It's like, this was amazing. The noise, the reaction, the pop, everything was just, it was unreal. I don't think AEW will ever get that again.
No, at all. Haney, what do you think?
Well, I sort of dispute that because I was at all in, and Grado's pop was enormous.
Did he just say Grado's pop was enormous?
It was. Doesn't he come out to like a Celine Dion song or something like that?
Well, they didn't do it. It was if they had done that, it would have been a big pop. But what was it called? If you've been to a UK show and Grado's been there and Life on a like a prayer plays, you'll know what it is. it's like you're talking about nightclubs. It turns into a nightclub, you know. Place goes wild. But yeah, definitely. I don't think it'd be topped, you know, because obviously of where it was and it was how it came about, you know, and it was. I know he's a polarizing character, and I know it was. I said from the start that it was going to be a bad idea. Not that I was a Punk fan, you know, but yeah, it was something special.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, I always remember the promo thing, and obviously, this kind of leads me up to my follow-up question: is we know what Punk's like, we know how vocal, obviously. So when you've got somebody who doesn't get a script and stuff like that, Nick, is that a risk in a way?
Depends how professional they are. That's my take on it. My whole beef with this is a lot of it is unprofessional. If you got a guy, don't give it worked fine back in the day, late 90s. Hardly anyone had a script, but everybody was there to better everybody else, for the betterment of the company, not just to do business for themselves. They were professional.
Okay, Mr. Isaacs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you give somebody a live mic, if they've got the gift of gab like he does, I think it's going to turn to gold a whole lot of the time. Even if something controversial comes out, it's something you could build off of and make money off of.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like when they give a crafty old school veteran the microphone and just let him kind of shoot, mostly work about what's on his mind. I think that works really well and makes for compelling television.
Of course,
If
Mr. Haney.
Yeah. Yeah. If they're professional, I mean, to be fair, most of the time Punk was a bit more professional in the whole situation. If you follow what was going on online, I mean, there was a certain group there that were taking pot shots and little things here and there all the time. You know, even the week after he sort of like he's fired, they're on like their wee show drinking Pepsi, and it's like, no, that was just purely incidental. Yeah, right. Come on, you know, what was it called? And you know, lots of little nuggets. It was somebody will sit down one day and put it all together, and you'll realise how much these buttons were pressed in AEW. You know, not to say that.
Sorry. There was an agenda.
Yes. He was the golden boy. That was the thing. He was the one making, you know, in the eyes of the fans, he was the golden boy. And that was my take on it all along. If they brought Punk in, it was because what people don't realise is Kenny and that. Kenny's well respected in Japan. Yeah, I'm a big New Japan fan. Not so much the Bucks. Because the Bucks have got a sort of, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but they don't follow tradition of wrestling. You know, they've tried to forge their own path, and in Japan, that's something you just you don't do. You know, what was it called? It's like the whole rumor with AEW buying New Japan. You know, if that was to hypothetically happen, I guarantee you most of the Japanese fans will switch to another promotion.
They would. It would be the UFC buying Pride. The same effect. They don't like a homegrown Japanese company being bought by outsiders, and it puts them off the product. That's why when Dana White, when the UFC bought Pride, the MMA organization in Japan, Dana White was on record saying, "Look, you know, we were kind of sold a hill of beans here. We bought the company thinking that we were going to be on television and the fans were going to be into it, but the Japanese public wanted nothing to do with American ownership of Pride." I think that's what it would be like in New Japan as well.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So going back to the sort of question, it was a lot of people were glad to see the back of them from what I've read. You know, obviously they made a lot of friends, you know, but when you don't follow tradition, and I know I've had a few digs at me because I'm a traditional guy. I like wrestling in the traditional sense, you know.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, Haney, and I agree with you about 60 to 70% of the time there with that.
Yeah.
It is. So
Oh,
obviously,
and by
first
the
of all-
way, too, you know Kenny Omega doesn't drink Pepsi. He's a chai latte guy.
Dear. So we'll obviously move on, obviously, to the next series, which is, of course, 5th of September 21 to 30th of November 2021. We'll start, obviously, with his first opponent, Darby Allin. Mr. Isaacs, obviously, everyone's eyes were on this because, like I said, he's a big name. We don't know what he's going to be like in the ring, but what do you remember about the Darby Allin match?
I thought it was a really enjoyable match. I thought they worked really well together. I thought Darby was a good opponent to put in there with Punk because, he obviously, Punk was a little rusty, but Darby could make somebody look good. And I thought it turned out to be a pretty good match. I don't think it was like a classic or anything, but it was an enjoyable match. And it was a good first match for Punk to return to.
Of course. Andy, what about you?
Yeah, I sort of agree. It was a sort of safe bet, but it was at that first opponent. You can have you get a guy that's willing to take all the risks as well in Derby.
Yeah.
Why not pick somebody like that he knows he can work with, and it was I think that was well scouted on Punk's I think that was probably a Punk decision, that one right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well scouted.
Okay. Nick, what about you?
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. And the Easter eggs in the match as well. The fact that they had 2 or 3 spots from the classic X-Pac, 1, 2, 3 Kid Bret Hart match from Raw in '94. There's about 3 spots that they lifted from that match to pay tribute to Hart and Waltman as well. But yeah, great match back. Like these two guys have said, safe bet. Darby's a good guy to take the brunt of the force and sell for Punk and make Punk probably look better than he was at that point in his comeback.
I'll just reiterate as well. I have a problem with watching Darby Allin matches as well because of some of the risks he takes. I'm just worried that he's going to kill himself in there.
Yeah.
I mean, that all in. I think he did hurt his back a little bit, but some of the stuff onto that. I mean, yeah.
He's somebody that I think is very likely to be retired by the time he's 30.
Yeah, well, he said that it was do or die. That's what his attitude is, isn't it?
We said the same about Jeff Hardy 20 years ago, though.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, that is true. Hardy's a freak. He must have a spine made of like adamantium steel or something like Wolverine. I don't see how he hasn't completely snapped in half yet at this point.
I don't like watching Hardy matches in the sense now that he looks in so much pain,
Yeah.
his movement and things. It's like, go do your music, man. You don't need this anymore. You've done it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
I think, unfortunately, his brother's a bit of an enabler and getting him into this. He's just like, you want to do some tag? All right, then,
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
definitely.
So we'll obviously stick with this thing. So after the Darby Allin match, he had obviously matches with Powerhouse of Daniel Garcia and Matt Sydal. So Mr. Isaacs, you were kind of obviously like solely on obviously Rampage. So Rampage doesn't get as much views obviously as Dynamite itself. So is this kind of like wheeled him into the main show?
I think this was just an attempt to give a shot in the arm to that program to get people watching it. I think that Rampage was still kind of sort of new at the time.
Well, it was the second week he came in, wasn't it?
What's that?
That was the second week he came in. The second
Yeah,
Rampage.
it was. It was. Yeah, that was like the very second episode of it. That's right. I'd kind of forgotten it was that early, but it was. But yeah, I mean, they wanted to use Punk as the guy to draw ratings for that show for a while because it was brand new. It was on Friday nights, kind of a hard night to get some viewership sometimes. And they used him to kind of inject an infusion of energy into the program to get people interested in it. So it made sense to me at the time why they put him on there.
Okay. Nick, what about you?
Yeah, exactly what they did with Collision. Obviously, they tried it with same thing with Rampage. Whether it worked or it didn't, whether it had a detrimental effect, maybe putting him straight onto Dynamite would have boosted the ratings a bit more and given his ego a bit of a pop. As you say, Friday nights is a hard night to get the ratings. Might not have done Punk's ego any good, but I love the fact the 3 people you listed there are just amazing talents, and seeing Punk work with those guys as a fan popped me huge.
Yeah.
Okay. Haney, what about you?
No, I've got to sort of agree with that. But I mean, Seidel himself, he's had a few bad injuries as well. So. But he was always somebody I thought it was going to be a sort of bigger name than he is. But so Punk working with him, there's no issue with that on that level. They're on that sort of level.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So after the 3 Rampage appearances, he was obviously on Dynamite against Bobby Fish, which led up to obviously Full Gear against Eddie Kingston. Haney, I mean, Eddie Kingston, I mean, he's great on the mic. I mean, Punk's great on the mic. So this is kind of like Ryan itself in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it was another sort of great pick to put him with. It was. I mean, Eddie's another one that's had a second at least of life. It was. He was that. It's a strange one, but whereas sort of what was it, LA Knight or Eli Drake or whatever it was always sort of there. Eddie was never really in that sort of like nearly there, So what was it? It was sort of good to sort of see Eddie do that. I mean, and obviously Eddie's went from strength to strength from that situation as well. So I think that was like a sort of good person to put with, But was again on the same level wrestling wise. Eddie's actually a good wrestler, but we don't obviously with his gimmick we don't get to see much of it, And I think with the Punk stuff we've seen a wee bit of what he is away from all the sort of nutty stuff that he does.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, obviously, working with Eddie Kingston, I mean, I've just said they're 2 guys great on the mic.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, they had one promo before the pay-per-view to sell the pay-per-view, and they sold it. These guys got like 10 minutes on the mic, and they were just annihilating each other. Obviously, it being personal, it being a kind of a worked shoot, given the history, the Ring of Honor stuff. Yeah, as it's been said previously, Kingston's really good in the ring. Don't get to see much of it. Probably saw more of it than we do normally against Punk. But yeah, these guys, man, just give them a microphone and they'll sell a pay-per-view.
Yeah, I just forgot all about the Ring of Honor thing. Just obviously with Punk being there and them being there. I mean, that just shows you where Eddie's came from. Because he was there. He was actually there most of that sort of tenure of Ring of Honor. Just in the background. Yeah. Just a solid worker, Yeah,
it's not a name that you think of, is it? You think of your Joes, your AJs, your Punks, Danielsons. You don't remember Eddie, but yeah, he was there. He was kind of like that guy in the background.
Yeah, it's like sorry to digress again. It's like the Brooklyn Brawler. He said he was asked about obviously what was it when he left the WWE. He was doing a couple of interviews and he was talking about it and he was saying, oh, you were always a job guy, and he says, but I wrestled everybody on the way up and on the way down, So I had an amazing career, His claim is he's wrestled every world champion, which is true,
Yeah.
Mr. Isaacs obviously building up to with Eddie Kingston.
Yeah, I think these 2 guys flowed really well together on the microphone, and I think they gelled good together in the ring. I do. And I agree with these guys. I think Kingston is kind of an underrated worker in the ring. You just don't see a lot of that from him because they usually put him in brawls and just put him on the microphone, which, he's amazing at. And I don't know if these 2 had legitimate heat or they just were so good at working with each other that they made it seem that way. Because I don't know if you remember, but Punk continued to take shots at Kingston on the microphone like well after this program was over with. So I don't know if there was something legitimate there between the 2 of them or not, but it was fun to watch.
I think I always suspected there was a go-to somewhere along the lines.
Yeah.
I sort of thought that at one point it was Punk will end up leading some sort of faction, but who knows? Especially as you sort of, sorry.
CM FTR and then maybe a couple other people. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. FTR was obviously near the end, and had that sort of relationship. But it was something I always thought they would sort of do with Punk as he sort of transition because he is older, and I think he was beginning not to hit some of the spots that he was quite comfortable with, and that's sad to see. But that's just whereas he sort of rewound it back. There's some there that not. I mean, I wish Jericho would stop doing that springboard because he's going to kill himself one of these days. But he learned his lesson and stopped doing the move, and they said that, and then he basically alluded to that. I'm not going to do that anymore, so it's a bit maturing,
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. So, yep, absolutely. So we'll move obviously along to 24th of November 21 to 2nd of February 22. He had matches obviously with QT Marshall, Lee Moriarty, teaming up with obviously Darby and Sting, Wardlow, Sean Spears, and it kind of led up to obviously to a feud with MGF. Now, I've got to be honest, there's a couple of names on the Mr. Isaacs where it's like, but I mean, it ends obviously with a great one with MGF. I mean, what do you think?
I think they were just kind of building like a road to CM Punk challenging for the title. And they were kind of like looking at it like, we're kind of going to build him up the way like a legitimate fight sport contender would be. We're going to start him at the bottom of the card where he's wrestling guys like Lee Moriarty, and they're just going to work his way up till he's getting higher profile guys, than like Wardlow, and then eventually ending up with the big one with MJF. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good way to kind of incrementally bring Punk back into the fold as a top tier guy. Because obviously when you got a lot of ring rust like he had, being gone for so long and at his age, he did have some visible ring rust. You could tell the psychology was there, but physically he wasn't all there. So he kind of needed some warm-up matches to kind of incrementally get himself to where he could work with the big guys like MJF.
Yeah,
absolutely. Nick? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I totally second that. I did like the Lee Moriarty. I like Lee Moriarty. I think he's one of those guys that's got the potential. I just don't think he's going to go anywhere with it. But if you put him in the ring with somebody good, you're going to get a good match. QT, 0 time for. But yeah, it told a story. He was working his way up the ladder to get to the prize.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any?
Yeah, I kind of disagree with what you say. And there was maybe a sort of conscious decision made around that UFC record they had as well, that they wanted to, because everybody thought they would come straight in and they would just go straight to that title, and in terms of wrestling, it was a long program before he even got there, whether you believe, whether if you think it's 2 losses or 1 loss, I know the second loss has been sort of rescinded.
It was made a no contest because I think Mike Jackson failed a drug test, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
So it still technically counts as a win, I suppose.
Well, no contest, neither person won. Yeah.
Right, so we'll move obviously along to 9th of February 22 to 29th of May 22. Now, obviously, leading up to we'll start obviously leading up to Revolution, obviously the MGF match. I mean, I've seen this match. Nick, this is probably one of my favorite matches with Punk at Revolution against MJF.
Definitely, yeah. It ticked the boxes. They set the bar very, very high, even, making reference to the Piper Dog Collar match. You start making fans think about that match, you've then got to be, you're in competition with that match. So they set the bar very high, and they delivered.
Absolutely. Mr. Isaacs?
Yeah, I agree with that as well. This had a good old school kind of Starcade kind of feel to it, and I loved it. I thought it was great.
Miss Haney?
Yeah, I can't disagree. Well, you know him. I'm a big Piper fan, and that's one of my favorite matches of all time. And they really, it really sort of. We've seen dog collar matches that absolutely stink, and when it was first sort of announced, I'm thinking, well, these 2 guys can work, but is it going to be any good? Because we've never had one in a long time, really, and and then they go and do that, what was it called? Sort of like that, and what was it? It's not talked about enough. It's not really sort of Punk. Obviously, we know about MJF. That and the MJF Cody sort of lashes thing. That to me is. Two of the best bits of wrestling that's been done in a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. So after obviously Revolution, it was obviously the build up to Double or Nothing. Again, matches against Dax Howard, Max Caster, Penta, Dustin, John Silver. Is this kind of like the same lead up to obviously the one before, Mr. Isaacs?
Yeah, basically. I mean, they kind of follow the same formula here. Put him with a string of opponents, let him kind of work his way back up the ladder. The only one of these that really stands out to me that I really remember is the Dax Harwood one. Like, that was great. And I mean, that was kind of like the first time that I remember seeing Dax Harwood as like a really good singles wrestler. And that was a phenomenal match. But yeah, I mean, he worked with a little bit of everybody again. He had some big guys, had some smaller guys. Just kind of, again, getting repetitions in, getting that feel, building him up the ladder so they can put on a good match with Hangman.
Yep. Any?
Yeah, what was it? Even before that, I remember falling out with some people because I think it was actually, I think it was one of the, it was one of these shows. I think it was one of Aaron's shows, kind of the dry shows. We were talking about it, splitting people up from rosters, and it was, and I said, I would love Dax to have a run as a singles guy, it was, and like, no, you can't split up MDF, and he's like, well,
I remember that. Yeah, they all jumped down your throat for that. I remember that.
Yeah, and it's like, well, it might happen now because Cash might be going to jail for shooting up.
If he doesn't stop waving guns at people's faces down there in Florida, he might disappear for a little while.
Yeah. I don't think that's going anywhere, to be honest. But it was two solid workers working together. For me, you look at that list and that's Punk building his little posse. The guys he can rely on, because at this point they probably know that Collision's coming, and he's putting together the guys that he wants because he's got that second contract as they talk about, So, essentially that.
And now to point that out, these were all Collision. These were all Collision guys.
Yeah.
That's true. Well said. Yeah.
No, I didn't. Now, obviously, this led up to Double or Nothing against Hangman Adam Page. I mean, I remember this match and I thought it was another good match. Not as good as the MGF one, but Mr. Isaac, what do you reckon to the Double or Nothing?
Yeah, I agree. This is when Hangman was kind of like in his in-ring prime. And he kind of just like, I don't know what the hell happened to him after that, but he's just not the same anymore. But during this time period, like, he was awesome. And, Punk was on top of his game. These two obviously had legitimate heat with each other, which made it more exciting as well. I thought this was a good feud. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
It did go a bit too far, as we sort of know. Eventually where it sort of led to. It's funny you should say that because around about that time, that was about the time Hangman gave up the sort of whiskey drinking. But was it so maybe that's what it was. Maybe he needed a wee whiskey before he starts.
He wasn't properly hydrated for his match with all the whiskey intake. Yeah, makes total sense.
This is one of these. Obviously we're talking about punks and highs and lows. This is one of the sort of the starters, one of the lows. And AEW's had some really big moments. That have been sort of stolen away from them for their reasons, and more often than not, Punk's at the end of that. And this is what sort of started this, and the promos and things like that. What was it called? And if you go back, there is was Punk being a bit more? You don't know. Was Punk being a bit paranoid about some of the stuff that was being said? Maybe not, because he's obviously in the sort of backstage in the locker room. There's probably little people saying things in his ear and things like that as well. But it was some of the stuff we didn't even know were pot shots. This is when it became transparent. But it's a shame that's what that match represents now, because it was a decent match. It was a good match.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nick.
Yeah, pretty much what these guys have said. Obviously, I have the task of following the dog collar match. He was never going to compete. Hangman was riding high at this point. He'd had the Iron Man matches with Danielson. He was absolutely smashing it against various opponents on a week-to-week basis. But yeah, it's going to be remembered as the start of the fall for Pepsi Phil for me. That's it. This is where all the seeds were planted and everything just kind of went south.
So obviously after they won the title, it was obviously a couple more matches, which led up to All Out 22. As you mentioned there, this is where it all obviously starts to begin, obviously downfall. So Nick, where do we begin with this?
I think it's perspective, depending on whose side. I think there's obviously, there's three sides. You've got the, the Bullet Club side, not Bullet Club side, the Elite side. You've got Pepsi's Phil side, and you've got the Truth somewhere down the middle. The matches themselves, it made for really good TV. I thoroughly enjoyed them. Enjoyed the match with Moxley, but it's when you look back at it now, it's tainted.
It starts at the beginning of 1986 when Rocky 4 was released.
Rocky 3, yeah.
Rocky 3. Already, it was 84 then or whatever, but that was yeah. And then we had the ridiculous sort of match to sort of like what was I think where what was it? Punk came out and lost in like 13 seconds.
Yeah, it was some kind of real controversial, wonky finish where something didn't go right.
Yeah. And then what was it called? As it's been pointed out by a few people, but was it when they got to that sort of match with Moxley all out, you sort of knew he was losing because he had that boo-boo face on, as some people cut saying this. It just looked miserable the whole match.
Yeah.
And
then build up to all out.
Yeah, this is kind of like my least favorite of the feuds that we've talked about. This was just okay. I mean, obviously there was some weird stuff going on here. The Dynamite match was weird leading into the pay-per-view. I mean, these two, Moxley's Moxley. I mean, he just is what he is. Like, sometimes he could show up and do really well, and a lot of times it just kind of is just the same old shtick over and over. It was okay, but obviously this was kind of the turning point where things all kind of slid downhill afterwards.
Yep.
Yeah. And of course, after this, Punk obviously relinquished the title. We wouldn't see him until obviously the Collision days. But do you think, obviously, with Punk gone, AEW kind of like took a dip in obviously ratings? I'll start with Nick.
I don't know whether it took it. Probably because Punk is a big name. Punk's not there. The diehard Punk fans aren't watching, so I'd be surprised if it didn't take a dip in the ratings. But for me, it was a better show. I think it's a better show without him. I think it was a better show before he turned up. So for me, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Isaacs.
From what I remember, and I'd have to double check, but I think it absolutely did cause a dip in the ratings. Like I think they dipped quite a bit after Punk disappeared, because that got people hooked in. People tuned in to see what he was going to do, and then when it came out that he was gone, and people were speculating that he was never going to come back, the Elite wasn't there either for a little while. If you remember, they had a suspension they were going through as well. So when you take off all the top guys, the guys that have been presented as the big stars, it just didn't leave them with much. And they were kind of struggling to regain their identity for a little while after that. And there was definitely a hit in the ratings, and there was definitely a hit in the quality of the program, in my opinion.
Yeah. Anna?
Yeah, well, I would agree with that. But I think it was ultimately it's led to the sort of benefit of them, because we then led into the sort of MGF stuff that might not have happened so soon. What was it with regards to that, and what was it as it sort of led up to will he come back? When he come back, it was very interesting to see. Sometimes it's I don't know if you know, but I'm actually, my profession is data analytics, and sometimes there's bigger parts to the story, and and just to fast forward to what it is just now, some people would say just now's the sort of same since he's been gone, but I think in the sense of, I mean, in the US, everything has been on the slide for the last few months, because NFL come back and college football's on, and the only sort of wrestling that's making numbers at the moment is NXT, and it's on a Tuesday, and I don't think there's anything on a Tuesday.
That's right. Yeah.
So what was it? It depends on what was it, how toxic a wrestling fan some people can be, where they sort of take it with. But for me, when the ratings drop, ratings are always going to peak up. They're going to be ups and downs like a roller coaster. It doesn't mean anything, you know. It was I think there was too much emphasis put on that at the beginning with the AEW when a lot of people have sort of moved on from that. I mean, I've spoken about it before. The WWE, it's masterful what they do. They build these wee shorts, you know, because the attention span of people is actually a lot shorter than people realise. And they're doing like hundreds of millions of views on, like, they're doing like whole episodes of Raw and condensed into like 20 minutes of like 10 clips, you know, and that's where their money's coming from. It's not coming from television.
Yeah, that is true. The streaming revenue is a lot more than TV. Yeah.
Well, YouTube.
So,
you look at the YouTube is a massive source. You know, like 2-3 minute clips of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you watch that so many times, I mean, you get like views after views after views. And I think I kind of agree with what Haney just said there. The attention span sometimes is kind of low for some people. I'm not saying all people, but some.
Well, this week's Dynamite is a perfect example of that. 5 seconds, you know, 5 seconds. I know all it took for sort of AEW, the Dynamite to trend and be the best episode ever, you know. And that happens all the time. That's not just AEW, that's WWE as well when they do something big. Oh, that was the greatest. Yeah, and then when you actually go watch the whole episode, there's nothing there. There's no content. Everything's been put into that last. What was it?
5 seconds.
It reminds me that there's a psychological phenomenon known as the recency effect and the primacy effect.
Okay.
And it's where the recency effect is where you put something super big at the very start, and that's all anybody remembers. The primacy effect is the opposite of that. You put something really huge at the end of something, and all of a sudden that's all that matters, and it becomes the totality of the entire program. And that's what I think happened here with the Mask Man bit.
Yeah.
It's like it's like a great film. You could be watching a film, can be rubbish for 80 minutes, but for the last 10 minutes hook you. That then becomes a great film just because of the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's a fair little thing. So obviously we'll move along now. Obviously, Punk wouldn't return until the 17th of June 23 for obviously Collision. It was obviously in the big main event with FTR, or FTR, should I say, against Joe, Jay White, and Juice Robinson. For some bizarre reason, that name kind of just slipped me. But, I mean, looking at those matches there, Mr. Isaacs, what do we think? Is anyone stand out?
I loved the work that he did with Samoa Joe, and I really enjoyed the Satoshi Kojima match at Forbidden Door. I thought that was really good. But this was kind of like them establishing Collision as CM Punk's show, as he was the guy that they're building the entire show around. And I do think they've kind of struggled a little bit post-Punk to rebuild the identity of Collision. I think it's getting there, but I think they definitely struggled for those first couple of weeks for sure. Because that you could argue that the advent of the show itself was completely based around CM Punk. It was the idea of keeping CM Punk a prominent figure on the show, but keeping him separated from everybody he had issues with, which culminated in this second program that happens every Saturday night. So I think this ultimately was huge for AEW and will end up being a net positive just by the creation of the Collision show. But we all know what happened from here. Yeah, let's see what everybody else thinks about it.
Yeah.
Nick?
When Collision started, I've said a few times, it was must-see TV. You know, you had FTR, CM Punk. I'm a massive fan for Switchblade. Juice is a better Brian Pillman than Brian Pillman Jr. And then he moved on to Ricky Starks. Collision was great for the first few months when Punk was involved. And hopefully now Danielson's kind of taken the reins. It'll pick back up again.
Yeah. Henry?
Yeah, I sort of agree with that. I don't think Danielson's got the personality for it. Almost that, was it still a thing with that cult of personality was what made that show, you know? Yeah. What was it? So, what was it? I think I'll be interested. I might be wrong. I might be proven wrong. I mean, I've said that before. If I was Tony Khan, what I would do is if I wanted Danielson to do anything, I would hand him 10 million and say, go and set up a wrestling school, and give me wrestlers.
Yeah.
What was it called? That's where my investment would be if I was Tony Khan. But what was it? It is what it is.
You mean you would rather have Danielson teach people than QT Marshall?
Yes.
Come on.
Yeah.
I think we'll move along. So 3 more matches, obviously before All In. It's obviously Ricky Starks, the House of Black, and an all-star 6-man match. I mean, I don't know, for some bizarre reason, Mr. Isaacs, these are not really clicking with me for some reason.
No, I mean, he had the thing with Starks, with Steamboat, that was pretty cool. I think that really did a lot to help Starks, especially with the inclusion of Steamboat and what he did, putting him over. The trios match and the 8-man tag kind of just showcase matches. Like, kind of just, you see this a lot in New Japan where, I call them the cluster F tag matches, where they have all the events at Carrick Hall, where they just have, we've got all of our big stars in a big 8-man tag match with each other, so we can cram them all on the card and everybody can see them. That's basically what they did here, to get CM Punk and FTR and Darby and all those guys crammed into one show so that they could be seen. I don't really think much more of it other than that, but it was there for the live crowd's entertainment more so than anything.
Yeah.
Nick?
Starks benefited huge. It gave Starks the rub. Again, he's a guy that deserves to be up there. And just a quick sidebar, it was nice to see Starks actually send out a positive tweet about Phil afterwards, thanking him for the rub, giving him his flowers. It was obviously then taken down a couple of hours later, probably under duress. But it was nice. Starks got the rub. He got the limelight on him. And that trios match against House of Black, I've watched that match numerous times. I'm just a fan of everybody in that match. And even if it was just an exhibition show, God, what a show. What a match.
I think the Starks match was a missed opportunity. It's then they should have had the Mindy's Bakery brawl, what was it? Because obviously Punk made that the muffins must be amazing,
I want those muffins.
But he was definitely coming down to what I sort of says, what was it, what we were like Switchblade and things like that. I think he hadn't really had much experience with him. I know he had the experience with sort of just and things like that. I think maybe that match was a feeling out where he could go with that guy, because I think he was probably excited about working with the guys, So let's do a little match and see how it feels, What was it? I've listened to a lot of sort of stuff from wrestlers and read a lot of stuff about them, and I'm told that's a thing they do, What was it, for some sort of stuff down the line, But yeah, it was sort of weird leading into. There was an undercurrent leading into all in, What was it, of like little digs and that were going on. Again, comes back to pushing buttons, What was it, and he sort of. He was being a bit professional then. He wasn't really as active as he was, sort of biting back, So we all know what happened, and it was it. I mean, I suspect the Jungle Boy story came from the Bucks camp. I'll say it straight away, with the glass. I suspect that's who told Meltzer that story, or Jekyll, one of the two. But I don't think they'll be remembered for anything other than just good matches, It was a nice end. It was a nice ending to the Starks match. I would have been livid if Punk won that. What was it? But yeah, that was just my thing. Yeah.
No, absolutely. So now we've obviously got the big talking point. Obviously, Punk's final appearance was obviously All in London, and I always remember reading the report saying there was an altercation backstage. So there's obviously a lot to unpack with this. So, Mr. Isaacs, I'll let you obviously unpack it and give your thoughts on the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, this was very unfortunate. This was the biggest show in AEW history, and it ended up getting completely overshadowed by some backstage bullshit because that's all anybody wanted to talk about after the show was over. And it's very unfortunate. That's really unfortunate for AEW that it went down like this. I wasn't there. None of us were there. So I don't know who shoulders the majority of the blame. I do think that what Jack Perry did was extremely childish and unprofessional. Going out during a match.
It was vindictive. It was done on purpose.
Yeah, it was vindictive. It was childish. It was like a temper tantrum type behavior. And when you've got the biggest show in company history, that's not the time to do that. It's just not. So I again, not being there, but just from an outsider looking in and reading the reports, I think Jack Perry has to shoulder the majority of the blame for this incident. But obviously, there's no excuse for, if it's true that Punk physically provoked him and asked him to fight and then choked him and whatever, that's wrong too, obviously. It's just a very unfortunate situation all around. I get that the old school culture of wrestling, was the, Vader and Brody and guys like that beating the shit out of each other backstage if they disagreed with each other about something. But this is a different era. This is an era where corporatism is a lot more intertwined with professional wrestling now. And there's standards in 2023 that they didn't have in 1983. And I think you just kind of have to leave some of that old school mentality in the past. And you got to make money. These guys are getting paid an exorbitant amount of money that the four of us on the screen are never going to see, to be quite frank. I mean, if you asked me to swallow my pride and work with somebody I didn't like to make the kind of money that these guys make, in a heartbeat, it wouldn't even be it'd be a no-brainer. And I just don't understand what's with these guys where they can't understand that they just need to utilize this and make money and put the personal stuff aside.
Yeah.
So, sorry to interrupt, but we do obviously have somebody on the line. Mr. Graham, hello there.
Golden Graham.
Hey, what's going on, guys? How you doing?
So you want to give your thoughts on this?
So, no, I have to take umbrage with what Mr. Isaac said when this whole all-in thing, sitting there saying that Jack Perry shoulders most of the blame. I wholeheartedly disagree because no one made CM Punk approach him and choke him out and punch him. CM Punk is a grown-ass man responsible for his own actions.
Oh, I agree with that too. But I do think what Jack Perry did was incredibly unprofessional, though. Independent of anything that he did with Punk, he should have been reprimanded just based on that alone.
I mean, he's still, as far as I know, he was still suspended. So,
yeah. No, but I didn't disagree. I mean, Punk shouldered blame too. I mean, you don't put your hands on somebody and threaten them and physically provoke them either. So I understand the Punk firing.
Yeah.
I think Jack Perry should get hit with pretty big sanctions as well.
And when I said it was vindictive, it doesn't relate to what happened backstage afterwards. It was
I agree. It was pretty stupid on his part to poke the bear.
Yeah.
Still doesn't want him getting choked out backstage.
No. Not at all. No. In no way was I justifying what Punk did physically to Jack Perry either. That was wrong too.
All right, guys. I just wanted to hop on and throw in my 2 cents about that. That's all. Mr. Isaacs, I'll see you tonight, I'm assuming, right? For Collision.
I will see you tonight, my man. I look forward to it.
Good night, guys.
Bye.
Bye, Graham.
Bye.
Right, so Nick, obviously unpack everything and give your overall thoughts with that situation.
I second the this was the kind of the final straw for the CM Punk experiment for me. Was, as was said previously, they'd just done Wembley. It was like the biggest thing in AEW's history. It was a massive benchmark for British wrestling. And yet all anyone wanted to talk about was CM Punk, Jungle Boy. And it would continue to be that way. The AEW product would never get the spotlight as long as it was a double-edged sword. It's got to get more eyes on the prize because Punk was there, but the good stuff's never going to get focused on because Punk's there. And I think Wembley was the perfect example of that. And yeah, it was just a kind of, for me, I was like, you just cut your losses.
Yeah.
Annie, unpack it and overall thoughts.
Yeah, it was. I've got to agree with that. I mean, I don't know if you yourself, were you at All In? Did you go to All In?
There you go.
Didn't go. What was it? I don't remember much of the next match. I think it was a Bullet Club with Kenny and things like that, because the texts were coming round and everybody was like, there was like mumbling in the crowds and like, what's going on? You know, what was it? Because it sort of started right at the end of the match because obviously the news was breaking. I mean, obviously somebody was. What was it? What was it? Apparently Meltzer was sitting at the opposite side of the stadium. If I knew that, I would have walked around and peed in his leg. But was it called? But yeah, it was. I don't remember much of the next match, you know, because everybody was just talking about it. You know, there was like mumbling and what was it? People were showing each other their phones and things like that. You know, and what was it called? And it was a good match. You know, it was a great match. You know, we've not talked about how good the match was. You know, and Joe and Punk always put on a great match. I didn't like what was it? I didn't like how. I think this would have been an opportunity to have Punk get the win. I didn't like how they did the sort of. There's two decisions going into All In. I didn't like was Ospreay. I know probably Jericho wanted that big moment, you know, with Ospreay at Wembley. That title switch should have happened with Umaga at All In, you know. But then again, there's obviously business reasons as well. Was it maybe New Japan didn't want that to happen at a big event? It wasn't theirs. And then there was Punk beating Samoa Joe after like 20 years of Ring of Honor with that sort of like just the legacy of the matches that they had going back way back. You know, people don't talk about the matches enough. You know, but was it just they didn't even build on it? They sort of mentioned it in passing. It was mentioned more afterwards. But what was it? You know, I think on the ring, I'm watching all in. JR makes reference to about going back. He finally got him after 20 years. You know, it's like you sort of thrown away the match. You know. But I'm just thinking from a sort of like storytelling point of view, but the match itself was fantastic. But as I said, going into the next match, I don't remember much of it. I had to watch it when I got home because everybody was like looking at their phone, wanting to know what's going on. But was in the stadium was. I don't know if it was picked up on the television. It was quite a polarizing crowd in London. I was in Box Park before where they had the sort of pre-event. And they put on CM Punk's music, and the place just booed, you know. Wow. Everybody was taken aback by it, you know. But when we got to the stadium, obviously it was mixed, you know. So very interesting thing. But I think the Elite guys are really beloved in the UK, and I think that's you'll find their fan base really there. You know, I know they did a lot of work in the Indies and that over there, so they are much beloved. So yeah.
Yep. So I've got obviously two more questions, obviously, as we begin to wind down. And this is a simple yes or no answer. Mr. Isaacs, firing CM Punk, the right decision for AEW?
That's difficult, man. That's difficult. I guess because of physical provocation, I guess you would have to say yes. I think ultimately in the long run, they would be better served with him, but that's not going to happen now. So I'm kind of iffy on that one, but I'm going to lean towards yes.
Okay. Nick?
I'm going to say yes for the reason that I gave previously.
Okay. Henny?
Yep, you can't put your hands on anybody, regardless of whether it was who they are and what they are, you know, or who you think you are, you know, or if you think you're justified, because you're not. You can't just go assaulting people, you know.
It's like I said, this isn't Orndorff and Vader backstage. Those days are done, man.
or was it Sid and Aaron? Was it Sid and Aaron with the knife?
Sid stabbed Arn Anderson with a pair of scissors, allegedly. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Is that why you finally got the Glock? Can you imagine having Glock then, you know?
So some bastard stabbed me with some scissors, so I had to pull out my Glock.
Yeah. Paper beats paper, Glock beats everything.
So I've got one final obviously question for every one of you. Looking back now, everything we've discussed, how will you remember CM Punk's time in AEW? I'll start with Mr. Isaacs.
A huge missed opportunity by everybody involved. I mean, I think it was a very brilliant flash in the pan for a little while, but they left a lot of money on the table because they didn't have anybody there strong to set these guys down and say, cut the bullshit. I'm paying you a lot of money. Let's make some money. Or you can leave. Either or. Nobody did that. And I think this is going to be a huge missed opportunity. And I'm not saying this is going to happen, but should AEW at some point down the road cease operations or sell or something to that, this is going to be what is brought up in the case study of AEW to say they should have handled this differently and things could have been different.
Okay. Nick?
Yes. If they'd have had somebody to take ownership the first match after Punk came back, they shouldn't have allowed the kind of brand split between Dynamite and Collision. The first match back should have been FTR and Punk versus the Elite. Get it dealt with, get it in the ring, make millions. That was $1 million match.
Yep.
That nobody was, again, professional enough just to be like, yeah, pay me and I will get in the ring with them. I don't care. It's good for business. It's good for us, and we get a heck of a payday out of it.
Absolutely. Annie, what about you?
Yeah, so I agree with that. I would like to say though, I think Tony Khan finally woke up after that though, and I hope that's like a check, because I've been very critical of him being too nice. He's too good for the wrestling business, and there's a lot of people are taking advantage. What was it of a situation. I felt I was heartbroken for him that night because he had to do that in Chicago and he was getting booed, and it was and to his detriment. He stood there and he won them over by the end of it. What was it called? I mean, that could have went a very different way because that was Punk's hometown. For me, it's got to be. I think it might turn into a missed opportunity. Potentially, potentially, like you says, if something happens to EW, it'll be the sort of catalyst that does it. But I also think potentially, I hope not. But if he goes to the WWE, they could make a lot of money out of him in a short period of time. Give him that Brock Lesnar deal. Where he only comes in every so often. And this is a bit of a hot take, controversial. AEW are at the risk of a missed opportunity with Cody. Yeah, they've just lost Jade. I'll put money on the fact that I think Starks will jump soon. What was it called?
Yeah.
Possibly MGF. And if Punk, they're making all the money. It comes back to the rumor about who's about to come to AEW. They can have Edge all they want because WWE are just going to make so much money out of that lot, and they don't even need to be good because it's WWE.
It's just got to be passable.
Yeah, guys, that's our show. We're at 1 hour 18. I mean, have you guys had fun as always?
Yep.
It's been a hell of a show, guys. Thank you all for coming on.
So before we obviously do our outro, Nick, you want to do some shout outs and tell everybody where you can find out, obviously, work the left side?
Obviously, head over to Twitter, WTLS420, search Work the Left Side on YouTube. If you haven't had a chance to watch it yet, obviously go and watch the Al Snow, Doug Basham episode about wrestlers, and just keep an eye out peeled because that's the exception. Normally it's British talent, and same as with Liam, just trying to talk to a varied bunch of amazing talent across the country.
Of course. Nice. And Haney, any shout outs and obviously plug some of your stuff? I'm sure you've got some.
I've not got what was it? I've not got any shout outs, but I would just like shout out to what was it, the Man United manager and what a disgrace he is. To lose to Crystal Palace 1-0. What is going on?
No idea. I saw the result and I'm like, what the hell? Oh dear. Right, guys. Mr. Isaac, let's obviously wrap up all after our show. Do you want to tell everybody where they can find us?
Yeah, you can find us at fnwrestling.com. All the way down at the bottom, you can find all of our socials. You can find me on Twitter, Mr. Isaacs. You can find Liam Wakeland. You can find FN Wrestling. We're all on there. We're everywhere. Everywhere you can be found, we're there.
Of course, of course. And for the rest of the week, obviously, Collision After Dark is immediately following Collision later on. I do believe, Mr. Isaacs, you're going to be a part of that show.
Yes, I am the lead host of Collision After Dark now. So, yeah, I will be on again tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Time and approximately 10 o'clock. We'll be discussing AEW Collision.
Of course. And tomorrow, we obviously with the All From Wrestling show, Wrestle Dream Prediction show. I'm going to check that one out because I want to see what people are thinking. And Wrestling with the Paranormal is obviously on Monday, a very special, as we've got April Hunter, the NWO star. So that's going to be like nice little fun. Mr. Isaacs, tell everybody about the t-shirts.
Yeah, we've got a pro wrestling tees store here at FN Wrestling. You can go to prowrestlingtees.com/FN Wrestling, and you can find the brand new Magic of Wrestling shirt that we have there. I have one on the way. Should be in the mail hopefully in the next few days or so. And it's a great shirt. This was a collaboration between Liam and myself, and you can find plenty of other t-shirts on there as well for your suiting. Check it out.
Of course. And one final thing, the old school. That's all I'll say.
If you like old school wrestling, and I know you do, you can go to prowrestlingtees.com/Adrian Adonis. The adorable Adrian Adonis, who you can find on a recent episode of the Vice documentary series, Dark Side of the Ring. Get you an Adrian Adonis t-shirt.
Of course. Nick, thank you so much for taking the time, obviously, to talk to us. It's always a pleasure, you salty son of a bitch.
No worries.
And one final thing, Mr. Isaacs, see us out to the outro.
Yeah, so when we do the outro to these shows, we like to end it on a positive note. So we all know that everybody here struggles with something in life, whether it's financial, mental, if you've got issues with your children, a spouse, an ex, whatever. What you've got to do is you've just got to remember that you have what it takes to get through the day, no matter what it is. Don't give up. Keep the fight. And just know that everybody here at FN Wrestling is with you. We're all behind you. And you just got to put your fist in the air and remember to just keep fighting.